All right, are you ready to really boost your cybersecurity knowledge? Today, we're diving deep into the core principles of cybersecurity architecture, something really crucial for anyone, no matter where you're at. Aspiring security pro, leading a company, or if you've been in IT for years, this is for you.
You know, what's often missed is that strong cybersecurity isn't just about reacting to those attacks after they happen.
Yeah,
It's
but
more about having a system in place that can actually withstand threats right from the start. Proactive, not reactive.
absolutely, that makes sense. So then how do we start building this proactive security? What are like the core principles we need to understand?
Well, one of the most fundamental principles is defense in depth.
Yeah.
So instead of relying on just one single security measure,
Right.
think of it as having layers of protection, like multiple lines of defense.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about having a strong password. It's about having a bunch of different security measures working together.
Right.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
Exactly. Think of like a medieval castle with its layers of walls, moats, and guard towers.
Right, right.
In cybersecurity, this translates to things like multi-factor authentication, where you need more than just a password to log in.
Hmm.
And then you've got firewalls that filter network traffic, regular vulnerability testing to catch those weaknesses, and encryption to protect all that sensitive data. So even if one layer fails, the others are there to back it up.
Okay, so it's like even if someone gets past one layer of security, there are more layers to stop them.
Yeah,
Got it.
exactly. For you, this could mean, combining those strong passwords with a password manager,
Makes sense.
enabling two-factor authentication on all your accounts and keeping all your software up to date.
That's a great way to explain it, using the castle analogy.
Yeah.
Makes it much easier to understand. So what's another one of those key principles we should be aware of?
Another important one is the principle of least privilege. This means giving users access only to what they need to do their jobs, nothing more. So it's all about minimizing potential damage by limiting access to sensitive information.
Right, right. So how do you prevent that thing, privilege creep, where people slowly get more access than they need? I can see how that would be a problem, especially in a fast-paced environment.
Yeah, and that's where regular access recertification comes in. Organizations should, periodically review those user access rights and remove anything that's no longer needed. It's got to be an active process.
Gotcha. So it's like constantly keeping things clean and not letting access permissions just build up over time. Okay, what else should we be thinking about when we're designing secure systems?
Well, separation of duties is also critical. This is where you prevent any one person from having total control over critical systems.
Oh, interesting.
Think of it like needing two keys to open a bank vault.
Uh-huh, yeah.
This makes it way harder for anyone, even someone with bad intentions, to compromise the system.
So it's like having checks and balances to prevent any kind of abuse, right?
Exactly. And this ties into a principle that's often overlooked: secure by design. Instead of trying to add security after a system is already built,
Oh, right.
you need to bake it into the design from day one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can imagine it's way more cost-effective to design with security in mind from the beginning rather than trying to patch things up later. But what does secure by design actually look like when you're putting it into practice?
Well, it's all about considering security at every single stage of development, from the very beginning when you're gathering requirements to the final deployment. So, for example, developers should be trained in secure coding practices to prevent those vulnerabilities in the software.
Right.
Security testing shouldn't be an afterthought. It's got to be integrated into the whole development process. It's like an architect designing a building to withstand earthquakes. You build it strong from the ground up.
Got it. So instead of trying to fix holes later on, we're making sure the foundation is solid from the very beginning. That's much more efficient. Any other principles we should be keeping in mind?
Absolutely. There's the care eyes principle.
Behavioral.
Keep it simple. Unnecessary complexity can create, vulnerabilities and make systems harder to manage. Think about like those crazy complex password rules
Oh, yeah.
that people end up writing their passwords down because they can't remember them.
That's a great point. Making things too complicated can backfire and make things less secure. So simplicity is key for both usability and security. You mentioned a principle we should avoid. What was that again?
Right. Security by obscurity. This is the idea that a system is secure just because its design is kept secret.
Oh, interesting.
It's tempting to think that way, but in reality, true security should hold up even if the system's design is public knowledge.
So it's not about hiding things. It's about building something that's inherently strong, no matter who knows how it works. That seems like a much more robust approach. Can you give an example of why relying on secrecy might be a bad idea?
Think about like Widely used encryption algorithms like AES and RSA, they're public knowledge, but their strength comes from the secrecy of the keys, not from hiding how they actually work. In fact, making the designs public lets more people examine them and helps find and fix any potential weaknesses.
That's a really interesting point. Transparency and open scrutiny can actually make security better in the long run.
Huh.
Okay, so we've talked about these essential principles, but how do we actually apply them to make sure we have comprehensive security? What's the next step?
Well, that's where the CIA triad comes in. It's like a checklist for cybersecurity covering confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Okay, the CIA triad. I've heard about this, but can you break it down for me and tell me why each element is so important?
Sure. Let's start with confidentiality. This is all about making sure sensitive data stays private, protected from anyone who shouldn't have access. It's about locking down information so that only the right people can see it. Access controls, strong passwords, and encryption all play a role here. For you, this could be like using a VPN on public Wi-Fi to protect your browsing data or encrypting sensitive files on your computer.
Okay, so it's not just about keeping everyone out. It's about making sure only the right people have access to certain information. What about the next part of the triad?
Integrity is about making sure your data stays accurate and trustworthy, protected from unauthorized modification. Imagine a financial transaction being altered without anyone noticing.
Oh, wow.
That's why cryptographic functions like digital signatures and checksums are so important. They guarantee that the data hasn't been tampered with.
So it's like having a tamper-proof seal on your data. This seems super important now with all the misinformation and data manipulation going around.
Exactly. And then there's availability, the last piece. This means making sure that authorized users can reliably and quickly access systems and information when they need them.
So it's not just about keeping data safe and sound. It's about making sure that the people who need it can actually get to it, right?
Precisely. This means having things in place to stop those denial of service attacks, the ones that try to overload systems.
Right.
It also means having solid backup and recovery plans so you can restore data if systems fail. Think about how frustrating it is when a website you need is down.
Ugh, yeah, all the time.
That's an availability problem. For you, this might mean backing up your important files often so you don't lose everything if your computer crashes.
That's a great example. Availability is something we don't really think about until it's gone. Okay, so we've got the CIA triad, this framework for ensuring security. But how do we actually put these principles into action? Where do we focus our efforts within a big, complex system?
Well, that's where we start to look at cybersecurity domains, the specific areas where we apply these principles. Welcome back. We talked about those core principles of cybersecurity architecture in part 1 and how important that CIA triad is. So now let's dive into those specific areas where we actually put these principles into action.
Okay, I'm ready to get into the details. Where should we start?
Let's start with Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short.
IAM. Okay.
This is like the gatekeeper of your systems. It controls who gets in and what they can do once they're inside.
So, if we're thinking about it like that castle, IAM is like the guards at the gate, checking who's coming in and making sure they belong there.
Exactly. IAM involves things like making sure you have strong passwords, using multi-factor authentication, and having role-based access control. Strong passwords are like your first line of defense.
Right.
But multi-factor authentication adds that extra layer of security, making users prove who they are with something else besides their password, like a code from their phone or something. And role-based access control makes sure people can only access the information and systems they actually need for their job.
Got it. So it's not just about keeping everyone out. It's about making sure the right people have the right level of access. What's the next area we should look at?
Next up is endpoint security. This one focuses on protecting all those individual devices like laptops, desktops, and smartphones from attacks. You can think of it like giving each device its own little security team.
Oh, that makes sense. It seems especially important these days with so many people working remotely and using their own devices for work.
Absolutely. Endpoint security measures would be things like antivirus software to catch and remove malware, endpoint detection and response, or EDR solutions to monitor and respond to anything suspicious, and then data loss prevention, DLP, tools to stop sensitive data from leaving the device. For you, this might look like keeping your personal and work devices separate and being super careful about what links you click or files you download.
So it's like each device has its own bodyguard, even when it's outside the office. Okay, what about protecting the network itself, the infrastructure that connects all these devices?
That's where network security comes in. This is all about safeguarding your network from unauthorized access and those nasty attacks. Picture it like building a huge wall around your digital kingdom.
So network security, that's like the moat and drawbridge, right?
Yeah.
Keeping those invaders out.
You got it. Key parts of network security include firewalls, intrusion detection systems, IDS, and network segmentation. Firewalls act like gatekeepers, checking out the network traffic and blocking anything that doesn't meet the security rules. IDS are constantly watching for suspicious patterns, like guards looking for any sign of trouble. Then, network segmentation divides your network up into smaller, isolated sections to limit the damage an attacker can do if they break into one part.
Wow, so many layers. It sounds like it'd be really hard for attackers to get through all that. What about the applications we use every day? Do those need protection too?
Of course, application security is super important. It's all about building secure software from the ground up and protecting applications from vulnerabilities that attackers could exploit. Think of it like making sure the doors and windows of your digital fortress are strong and secure.
Okay, so we're securing the network, securing the devices, and we also need to make sure the software itself is secure.
Yeah.
How do you actually do that?
Application security involves things like secure coding practices, where developers are writing code with security in mind right from the start.
Yeah, makes sense.
You've also got vulnerability scanning to find and fix weaknesses in applications that already exist, and penetration testing, where ethical hackers try to break into your systems to find those vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. It's like having architects and engineers constantly inspecting your fortress for weak spots and reinforcing them before anyone can exploit them.
Okay, so it's an ongoing process of building, testing, and improving the security of your applications. Now, what about the most important asset for any organization, the data itself? How do you protect that?
Protecting data is absolutely crucial, and that's where data security comes in. It's all about safeguarding your data from anyone who shouldn't have access, from unauthorized changes, and from disclosure. Picture it like you're locking up a precious treasure in a super secure vault.
Yeah, data breaches are becoming so common. What are some of those key things you need for good data security?
Data security covers lots of different practices, like encryption, access controls, data masking, and data loss prevention. Encryption scrambles data so it can't be read without the right key. Access controls limit who can see sensitive information. Data masking hides sensitive data or places it with fake data, protecting privacy but still allowing people to analyze the data. And data loss prevention tools watch and block any sensitive data from going outside authorized channels.
Wow, that's a lot. It sounds like you're protecting data both when it's stored and when it's being transmitted. That brings us to the next stage, right? What happens if, despite all these precautions, a threat manages to get through?
That's where threat detection steps in. It's all about having systems and processes in place to spot and respond to threats that got past your initial defenses. Imagine you have a security team constantly patrolling your digital fortress, looking for any sign of intrusion.
Threat detection sounds like it's about being constantly alert, looking for those little clues that something might be wrong. What are some of the things people use for threat detection?
Threat detection uses a bunch of different tools and techniques, including security information and event management, SIEM systems, intrusion detection systems, IDS, and threat intelligence platforms. SIEM systems collect and analyze security data from everywhere, looking for patterns and weird things that might point to an attack.
Okay, so they're looking for anything that seems out of place.
Right. IDS keep an eye on network traffic for anything suspicious, and threat intelligence platforms provide info about new threats and vulnerabilities so organizations can stay ahead of the game. Think of it like a team of cybersecurity detectives analyzing evidence, interviewing witnesses, and putting together clues to find the bad guys.
That's a great analogy. Threat detection seems like a really interesting and constantly changing field. So what happens once you've detected a threat? What do you do next?
Well, that's when incident response kicks in. This is the process of handling those security incidents effectively so you can minimize the damage and get things back to normal as quickly as possible. It's like having a well-trained emergency response team ready to go when a security breach happens.
So incident response is about having a plan and being ready to act fast when something bad happens.
Exactly. A good incident response plan will outline who does what, how everyone communicates, what the procedures are for escalating things, and specific steps for containing and getting rid of those threats. It also includes steps for preserving evidence, talking to stakeholders, and learning from what happened to prevent future breaches. Think of it like a fire drill, but for cybersecurity, making sure everyone knows what to do and can act quickly and efficiently during a crisis.
Having a solid incident response plan sounds like it can make all the difference in minimizing the impact of a breach. We've covered so much about those cybersecurity domains. But what about the human element? How do we deal with the fact that people are often the weakest link in the security chain?
You're absolutely right. Technology can't do everything. We've got to address the human factor too. That's where security awareness training comes in. It's about educating employees about cybersecurity threats and best practices so they can make smarter decisions.
Security awareness training, that sounds really important. How do you make security training engaging and effective?
Yeah, traditional security awareness training can be kind of boring and not very effective. To make it more engaging, organizations should use a variety of methods like interactive simulations, games, real world examples, and storytelling. Instead of just lecturing employees about policies and procedures, show them the consequences of bad security habits through simulations and scenarios. Make it relevant to their everyday lives.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of just telling people what to do, show them why it matters and give them the tools to make better security decisions. What else is important for a strong security awareness program?
Regular training is key, but it's also about creating a culture of security within the organization. Encourage employees to report anything suspicious, reward good security practices, and make security a part of everyday conversations. It's about making security part of the organization's DNA, not just an afterthought.
That's a great point. This has been a fantastic overview of the key cybersecurity domains and how important it is to address the human element. It's clear that building strong cybersecurity requires a comprehensive approach. But technology is always changing, and so are the threats. What are some of those new trends and technologies that are shaping the future of cybersecurity? So we've covered all those core principles and essential domains of cybersecurity. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about the big picture. Building an organization that can handle anything, of a cyber resilient organization that can weather any storm in this digital age.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is that cybersecurity goes way beyond just those technical controls. It's really woven into an organization's culture, its processes, and of course, its people.
Right. So it's not just about having all the latest gadgets and software. It's about having that security conscious mindset built into every level of the organization. How do you go about building that kind of culture?
It really starts with the leadership. Security can't be something you just tack on at the end. It needs to be a priority from the top down. Leaders have to make it clear that it's important, dedicate resources to it, and create a culture where everyone feels like they have a part to play in security.
Okay, so having the leaders on board is crucial.
Yeah.
What are some practical things they can do to show that commitment to security?
The best thing they can do is lead by example. They should actively participate in security awareness training themselves, show good security habits, and regularly talk to their teams about how important security is. They also need to invest in putting together a strong security team and give them the resources and authority they need to be effective.
So it's about making security a visible and essential part of everything the organization does. What are some other key ingredients in building this cyber resilient culture?
Communication is super important. Organizations need to have those open channels where people can report security incidents and concerns. Employees should feel like they can speak up if they see something suspicious without being afraid of getting in trouble. Regularly talking about security threats and best practices keeps it top of mind for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about being open and transparent when it comes to security.
Oh.
What about the more formal side of things? What role do those policies and procedures play?
You need strong policies and procedures. They're the backbone of any cyber resilient organization. They spell out the rules for everything from how to manage passwords and control access to what to do when there's an incident and how to back up data.
It sounds like having those clear guidelines helps everyone understand what they need to do and make sure everyone is on the same page when it comes to security. But those policies can be kind of boring, and people often ignore them. How do you make sure they're actually followed?
You're right. Policies need to be practical and easy to understand. They should be reviewed and updated often to keep up with the changing threats out there. But most importantly, they have to be enforced.
So keep them clear, relevant, and make sure people are following them. What about being proactive? How can organizations find and fix those potential weak spots before someone takes advantage of them?
That's where risk management comes in. It's all about constantly identifying, assessing, and mitigating those cybersecurity risks.
Risk management, it's like knowing what could go wrong and taking steps to make sure it doesn't, or at least minimize the damage, right? But how do you even start to figure out all those potential risks in these complex IT systems we have today?
It starts with knowing what you've got, what data, systems, and applications are absolutely critical to your operations. Then you figure out what threats could harm those assets and how likely those threats are and what kind of impact they could have. Once you have a good picture of your risks, you can start putting controls in place to reduce them.
So you're always looking ahead, understanding your vulnerabilities, and taking steps to protect yourself before anything bad happens. But let's be real, no matter how prepared we are, breaches can still happen. How do we minimize the damage when they do?
That's why having a well-defined incident response plan is so important. It's like having a fire drill, but for cybersecurity incidents.
So it's about knowing what to do and who to call when something goes wrong.
Exactly. A good incident response plan lays out who's responsible for what, how everyone communicates, the procedures for escalating things, and the exact steps for containing and getting rid of the threats. It also includes what to do to preserve evidence, how to talk to stakeholders, and how to learn from the incident to prevent the same thing from happening again.
That really emphasizes how important it is to prepare and practice. You have to know what to do when things hit the fan. But cybersecurity isn't something any one organization can handle alone, right?
You're absolutely right. Collaboration and sharing information are crucial if we want to strengthen cybersecurity across the board.
So it's about sharing what you know and working together to create a more secure world for everyone.
Precisely. Organizations can really benefit from being part of industry groups, working with government agencies, and even just informally sharing information with other companies. When we share what we know about threats, vulnerabilities, and best practices, we can all improve our security.
That highlights how security is everyone's responsibility. We all need to work together to make our digital world safer. Looking ahead, what are some of the big trends you think will have a major impact on cybersecurity?
One trend that's gaining a lot of traction is the adoption of zero trust security. This model assumes that no user or device can be trusted by default, no matter where they are or what network they're on.
Zero trust. That sounds pretty intense. Can you tell me why it's becoming so important?
In the past, we used to think about security in terms of a trusted network perimeter, like that castle wall. But with cloud computing, mobile devices, and remote work, those old perimeters have become blurry. Zero Trust recognizes that and enforces strict verification every time someone tries to access something, no matter where they're coming from.
So we're moving away from that old castle and moat idea and taking a more dynamic and adaptive approach to security.
Exactly. Zero Trust is all about verifying explicitly, using least privilege access, and assuming that a breach might happen. It's a much more proactive and resilient security approach for the complex IT environments we have these days.
That makes a lot of sense. Any other trends we should be keeping an eye on?
We've talked about artificial intelligence, or AI, a lot today, and its role in cybersecurity is only going to get bigger. AI can help us automate tasks, analyze huge amounts of data, identify threats, and even predict future attacks.
It sounds like AI could really change the game in cybersecurity, but are there any challenges or concerns we should be thinking about?
AI definitely has a lot of potential, but we have to be aware of its limitations and potential risks. One challenge is making sure that AI systems are trained using unbiased data so they don't just continue existing biases. We also have to worry about malicious actors using AI to develop even more sophisticated attacks.
So it's a powerful tool, but we need to make sure we're using it responsibly. As we wrap up our deep dive into cybersecurity, what are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing cycle of learning, adapting, and improving. And it's everyone's responsibility. We all need to do our part in creating a more secure online world.
That's a great point. Cybersecurity is something we need to be thinking about all the time, both as individuals and as a community. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a really insightful and informative journey.
My pleasure. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.
And to all our listeners, until next time, keep diving deeper.